Yeah, welcome to the Get Fit with Jodelle podcast. I am, as usual, Jodelle. And you know what? Health is your greatest wealth. Even the most money on the earth can't buy you one more day. We saw that firsthand with Steve Jobs, right? He couldn't buy himself out of something like a pancreatic cancer issue. But what if health didn't have to be expensive? In fact, what if the most effective things that our body that can help our bodies are free and actually quite easy to do daily? And as I've stated before, health does not have to be hard, but rather going back to basics with our human nature is what really optimizes us as a human. And what if breathing could also make you lose more fat than diet and exercise? Yep, it's free and highly effective. And I've brought on someone who has both the expertise as a doctor and as a compassionate teacher to help us understand this very subject. And in today's podcast, we're going to share with you many free lifestyle choices you can make in order to optimize your health without costing you a penny. And that's something we can all benefit from. So I'm super stoked to be talking today to Dr. Sachin Patel. Yep, he's a doctor, a functional and lifestyle medicine practitioner. I love that because I call myself a lifestylist too, and this guy is as well. International speaker, author, founder of the Living Proof Institute, passionate visionary that serves as both a teacher and a guide to help people create their best life and bring out their inner healer. I love that. So he practices what he calls health creation rather than disease prevention. So let's dive into how we can create health rather than simply prevent disease. Welcome, Sachin.
Thank you, Giselle. It's such an honor to be here today. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and your community.
Yeah, I've watched you over the years and have just always envisioned, okay, I got to talk to this guy. I got to have him on the podcast and really pick his brain on a couple different topics because there's there's so many people that are doing what seems like the right thing, the nutrition, the exercise, the sleep, trying to get their sleep in, but they may be missing the bigger picture, such as how powerful breath is for fat loss and regulating your nervous system and things like sunlight and grounding. So in your opinion, Sachin, what are the bigger needle movers when it comes to fat loss and optimizing one's health?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. And loaded question too, right? There's so many things that one can do. However, I like to keep it simple. I like to focus on the things that people are already doing and doing them with awareness. That way it takes no additional time out of your day. And since you're already doing it, you're not really adding anything to your day in terms of learning a new capability. You're just accessing something that you already do through a slightly different vantage point. So a simple example, several simple examples I can give, but one of them would be as simple as the way we go to the bathroom, right? Chances are you're sitting on a toilet every day to go number two, maybe even a couple times a day. Are you doing that in the correct position? Most people aren't, right? So by simply raising your knees over your hips, you're anatomically repositioning your pelvis so that you can go to the bathroom with so much more ease. And that one simple thing is just a slight shift from what you're already doing, takes no additional time out of your day. And if you don't have the budget to buy a squatty potty, you can put a couple of paint cans under your feet and just slightly elevate your knees. Another example is breathing. You're already breathing. What if you were to breathe with more awareness? What if you were to place your tongue at the roof of your mouth instead of in the bottom of your mouth? What if you were to consciously breathe through your nose instead of breathing through your mouth? What if you were to put a piece of tape vertically over your mouth at night to ensure that you don't mouth breathe at night? These are simple things. You're already breathing at night. Let's do it with some conscientiousness and some awareness. You're already breathing during the day. Let's do that with awareness. Another example would be chewing your food. Chances are you're eating a meal, maybe several meals throughout the day, but how conscientious are you and aware are you of how well you're chewing that food? Because chewing your food just a little bit more, 30 to 40 times bites per bite, right? Or chews per bite, that's going to significantly increase the surface area and digestibility of the food as it goes into your stomach, reducing bloating, reducing protein maldigestion, reducing gas, right? Increasing nutrient assimilation and absorption, giving the immune system a bit of a break, right? So it's not having to process all these undigested proteins, helping enhance the state of the microbiome because we're not sending substrate into the lower bowel and digested. I mean, all of
Mhm.
these things happen just by simply chewing your food better. So, what I like to do is I like to focus on things that we're already doing and do them with awareness. Another example could be, in the summer, I literally worked from outdoors the entire summer, unless it was raining. And if it was raining, I wasn't in direct sunlight, I was under an awning. And that made such a huge difference for me. So I can take my office outdoors and do 80 to 90% of my work, in the sun. I don't have to
Mhm.
be indoors. Having your coffee outdoors in the morning instead of indoors. I mean, just simple things when the weather permits that we can do that can make a profound difference for us.
You're speaking my language because I have a little DIY tub outside. It's basically a stock tank, and I fill with water, sometimes cold, sometimes hot. And then I sit and have my coffee, depending on what temperature I want the water to be. I sit outside and have my coffee first thing in the morning in the water. So it's like
Amazing.
I want to start my day with water therapy because I think water is so therapeutic. But
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, like you said, these are free things that you can do. You're already doing them. Can you do them better? Can you optimize the way you're doing them? So I love that. And I think it was you that I heard say, you can have a breath practice, but your entire day could be a breath practice. Your entire day,
Mm-hmm.
you could be mindful of the way that you're breathing when you're in the car, when you're at the store, when you're working on your computer. So talk to us about that. Do you still do that? Like you have a daily mindfulness about your breath work?
Yeah, great question. In fact, I just talked about this with a client on the phone earlier because he asked me the same thing. He's a similar thing. He says, "What's your daily breath practice? What do you do every morning?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to reframe this because I think it's important for us to focus on how we breathe throughout the day.
Hmm.
We take about 23,000 breaths a day. And for most people, including myself, up until the last 5 years, these were unconscious breaths. So we assume we're doing it right because we're still alive. But breath is probably the next frontier for a lot of people in their health journey. It's something that was probably very unlikely to be discussed during a consultation with their doctors. However, it can profoundly unlock our autonomic nervous system and make it accessible to us. So I like to think of the breath as the steering wheel of the nervous system.
Mm.
And the nervous system is really what runs the show when it comes to our immune health, our sleep health, our digestive health. I mean, really anything that we want to improve upon in terms of health requires us to be in a more parasympathetic state. And the fastest way to access the parasympathetic state is by changing our breath.
Hmm.
And our body already does this. Our body changes the breath as the first physical sign of a shift in the nervous system. So if a lion were to chase us, immediately our respiratory rate would increase without us even thinking about it. If we were to feel a sigh of relief, we would literally sigh in relief, right? Because the breath and the nervous system are now feeling that and demonstrating that stress is alleviated. So the breath is a powerful window into the rest of our body. And one of the things that I like to do is breathe in accordance to the task that I'm doing.
Mm.
So as my activity changes, the state of my nervous system should change as well. So, for example, if I was sitting here breathing like this, that would be really weird, right? Because that's how I'd be breathing if I was running or sprinting or doing something that's highly engaging, where my nervous system and physical body require me to breathe more rapidly so that my lungs, as they expand and contract, can pump my heart. So my diaphragm, as it moves up and down, can assist my heart in producing pressure because I
Hmm.
need to get more blood to my arms and legs. Now, if I was running and I was breathing very slow, then that might be a problem as well because I'm not assisting my physical body in delivering the oxygen that it needs to function optimally. And I'm not also assisting my heart and lungs. So I say all that for people to be present to the fact that your breath has a lot more to do with your health than you might think.
Hmm.
Our breath is again the steering wheel into our nervous system and controls our basically our entire biological system. So I breathe in accordance to what I'm doing. So, for example, most of my breathing is going to be in what we call a coherent state, where I'm breathing in for a count of six and out for a count of six. My tongue is gently placed at the roof of my mouth, breathing in and out through my nose. So that's going to be my default breathing pattern that I come back to. Now, if I'm physically active and let's say I'm at the gym, I'm going to try to maintain nasal breathing. I might speed up my breathing. So instead of being 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, it makes sense for me to breathe faster because my oxygen demands and my ability to CO2 has to increase. So we have to adapt our breath in accordance to that. But I can breathe in and out through my nose. And then if I start exerting myself even more, I'm going to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth, bringing in that and cleansing and bringing in fresh air. And then if I'm sprinting, then I'm going to be breathing in and out rapidly through my mouth. So the way I breathe is going to be in accordance to the activity that I'm doing. So if I'm on a conversation like this with you, when you're speaking, I'm going to go right back to my 6 in, 6 out breath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if I were to run upstairs and run a few errands for my wife, for example, and I had to like be physically active, I might run into breathing a little bit faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still trying to maintain nasal breathing, but then switching to in through the nose, out through the mouth as my exertion level increases. So I try to bring awareness to my breath as soon as I can when I shift my level of activity or shift the task that I'm working on.
Oh, I love that. And I can relate because when I'm in the car, I'll play some like not normal music, like kind of like relaxing music, and I match my breath when I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving to that music. And I do that specifically so that I'll breathe nice when I'm driving and not get all pent up with, tension while you're out on the road and you're dealing with all the other traffic issues and things like that.
Right.
So, yeah, it you can set up your day to be an entire breath practice, just like you said, and being mindful of like, how do I need to breathe in this situation? And I love that
Mm-hmm.
because we know the term in science, cellular respiration. So you just think about that word and it relates to the fact that we need proper breath in order to function well in our mitochondria, in order to make all of the processes happen in the electron transport chain. So can you speak to that at all, the importance of breath, not just for being mindful and creating a peace in the body, but also it actually helps us as we create energy, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So the only place we use that oxygen that we breathe in is in our mitochondria. And the mitochondria is where our food essentially turns into electrons and then turns into ATP, which is a currency of energy in the body. And so our breath plays a crucial role in that process. And in fact, how we breathe plays a crucial role in that process. So, for example, breathing in through our nose completely changes the quality of the air and what happens in our body versus breathing through our mouth. So you
Mm-hmm.
might think, well, breathing in through my nose, breathing out through my mouth, what's the difference? Well, it helps to understand it through the context of a biologist and as a healthcare provider. So breathing in through our nose actually perfects the air that we breathe in. It pressurizes the air, it moisture regulates the air, it temperature regulates the air, and it also increases the oxygenation of the air by 20%. So we actually get a higher quality of air coming into the lungs versus breathing through our mouth. When we breathe through our nose, we also increase nitric oxide sixfold. Nitric oxide is a very important molecule in the body, and it serves several functions in terms of metabolic health. It helps with lowering blood pressure because it dilates our blood vessels, thus increasing microcirculation. And it also acts as a potent antipathogen. So it kills viruses and bacteria and pathogens on contact, which means that when we breathe through our nose, we're actually cleansing the air and sterilizing the air before it goes into our lungs. Remember, our lungs have a microbiome as well. So we don't want to pollute that microbiome with bacteria if we don't have to. When we breathe through our mouth, a few things happen. There's a cascade effect of breathing through our mouth. So, first of all, when we breathe through our mouth, we don't increase our nitric oxide levels. We actually lower our nitric oxide levels. When we breathe through our mouth, we dry out our mouth, thus
Mm-hmm.
changing the pH of our mouth, thus making it more prone to bacterial overgrowth and dental caries, cavities, gingivitis, plaquing, all those kind of issues. When we dry out our mouth, we also inadvertently kill the bacteria that helps us make nitric oxide. So mouth breathing will actually decrease microcirculation, will decrease or increase blood pressure, and mouth breathing acts as a diuretic. So it actually causes us to, in fact, wake up in the middle of the night to use a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a problem for somebody. Changing to becoming a nasal breather at night will make a huge difference for them. Mouth breathing is the number one cause of cavities as well. And as we know, our oral health is a window into our cardiovascular health as well. When people breathe through their mouth, they're actually more prone to developing tonsillitis, and adenoiditis. So the way we breathe plays a huge role in those areas of our life as well. What's also interesting about breathing is that it regulates three other systems in our body. The first system is the cardiovascular system. So our diaphragm, as I mentioned earlier, is referred to as the second heart. And when we oxygenate that blood and circulate it throughout the body, it plays a huge role in our health. The other role of the diaphragm is that it pumps the lymphatic system. So some of our
Mhm.
biggest lymph nodes in our body are underneath our diaphragm. In fact, one of my nephews just recently got a viral infection, and his post-viral symptoms were his lymph nodes underneath his diaphragm became completely inflamed and were causing severe abdominal pain. So
Wow.
most people don't know we have big lymph nodes underneath our diaphragm, and it makes sense that God would put them there because we take 23,000 breaths a day, right? You
Mhm.
might only take 10,000 steps if you're lucky, but you take 23,000 internal steps with your diaphragm each day, pumping that lymph. And the third system that the lymph regulate or the diaphragm regulates is our myofascial system. So our
Mhm.
myofascial system, for maybe you've had people talk about this, but our myofascial system is basically a web-like system that connects every cell nucleus simultaneously together through a hydrostatic system, which means that I can push on your finger here, and the tip of my toe instantly, through a transference of pressure, knows that receives that signal. So we have a myofascial system, and the myofascial system is quite interesting because it is constantly adapting, it's constantly shifting and shape changing based on what the demands are from the body, externally and internally. And our diaphragm is the master regulator of that system. This is why, whenever we're going to face a blow, if somebody's going to punch us, what do? We hold our breath.
Mhm.
If we're going to get into an accident, what do? We brace for impact by holding our breath, by retaining that stiff diaphragm so that allows a transfer of that force to take place. And so the myofascial system is where we store a lot of our trauma, our physical and emotional trauma. So the diaphragm is also where that traumatic experience is going to be stored. And this is why breathing and breath work can help boil those things to the surface and then help people release them as well. So our cardiorespiratory and cardiovascular system, our lymphatic system, our emotional system, and our myofascial system all require the diaphragm to be working and functioning properly.
Oh man, you're speaking my language. I love anything to do with lymph and fascia because it is such a powerful mover in the body when you get it to move and when you get it
Mm-hmm.
to open up. And I feel like there are quite a few people who walk around with stagnant lymph and stagnant fascia systems where they're just getting tighter and tighter and kind of folding forward more and more and not opening up those areas of the body that are so critical for, not, like you said, not just health on the physical level, but health on the emotional level too. And myself with clients, I see a lot of people that as they start talking and you can tell their breath is getting deeper and they're sharing something with you, they get emotional. So those
Mm-hmm.
emotions are coming up, and it makes sense that that diaphragm is is stimulating the vagus nerve, it's stimulating the fascia system, it's stimulating the lymph, and that emotional body is coming forward. So I love everything that you're saying about that. Let's go back to lymph a little bit because I love to remind people how important it is to manually pump your lymph system, and breath work is totally part of that. But how do you feel about taking these extra pauses in our day to really manually, touch these areas of your body that get clogged as far as lymphatic node clusters?
Yeah, great question. So I actually have, I think it's called a flow, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And it's a little vibrational tool that you can use on different parts of your body. And so you can put it on your neck, you can put it on your armpits. I use a wave plate every day. So I do
Good.
about 6 to 8 minutes on a wave plate, and I open up and stretch in the wave plate. And so that's how I do a lot of my lymphatic work. I do
Yeah.
cold showers as
Hmm.
well. And I particularly want to make sure I'm getting into the armpits and into the groin, and not just washing those areas, because obviously most everyone does that, but really like massaging those areas and just recognizing the anatomy that's there and making sure that that lymph is moving in a good way. The other thing that people can do, and I'm sure they know this perhaps already, is something called dry brushing.
Hmm.
So a dry brushing is taking a it's kind of a dense brush, I guess, and rubbing it towards your heart. So starting from the tips of your fingers and gently rubbing uh, the dry brush towards your heart, that can also be very beneficial for people. And I mentioned this slightly, but contrast therapy. So 5 days a week, I go into a sauna, then I do a cold shower, go into the steam, cold shower, and usually recommend finishing cold. But that's another way that we can open up the cardiovascular system, but also help with the lymph as well.
Yeah, that cold therapy is so powerful for the brain too. I heard recently that it increases dopamine by 250%. Like after
Yep.
you take a cold bath or a cold shower or get out into the cold, like it's not comfortable, but that dopamine site in the brain is very powerful towards pleasure and pain. So sometimes you have to get a little uncomfortable to make that dopamine fire more intensely. So, or to build your dopamine stores, so to speak. So the
Mm-hmm.
brain is really powerful and mindset is really powerful for breath work, for kind of overriding your automatic breath and kind of creating that mindfulness we talked about, but also regulating the nervous system. So, can you talk about regulating the nervous system, how powerful that is, even for something like fat loss, to make that cortisol and those stress hormones come down so that your body's in more of a calm state to respond to the goals you're seeking?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favorite topics, and I learned a lot about the autonomic nervous system through a gentleman, clinician named Dr. James Chestnut,
Mm.
and just he has an amazing way of explaining it. So you can definitely reference his work. And one of the things that I learned about the autonomic nervous system is that it's the system that's often overlooked because there's no blood work for it, right? There's no lab work to tell what state somebody's nervous system is in. And if you look at what the autonomic nervous system does, it's regulating and controlling all the processes that are happening automatically for us without us having to think about them. So, even something like digesting our food, we have to think of what we're going to eat. But
Mhm.
once we swallow that food, hopefully we've chewed it, as we talked about earlier. But once you swallow that food, all the other processes are happening as a function of the autonomic nervous system. When we're breathing unconsciously, for example, that's happening automatically for us, right? All of our repair processes are happening automatically for us. And so the autonomic nervous system can be divided into the parasympathetic division and the sympathetic division.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, most people these days are spending too much time in that sympathetic division, which is known as the fight or flight or freeze system in the body. And when we're in that fight or flight state, our body is in a state of breaking down. So it's not in a state of building up, repairing, regenerating, rejuvenating, and restoring. It's in a state of breakdown. We're breaking down glucose and turning it into energy so we can run away, right? We're creating more cortisol to break down our body in and to create whatever situation we need in order for survival to take place. We increase adrenaline production so we can increase blood pressure, increase heart rate. We shut off the immune system because that's not going to be a good use of our energy if we're trying to survive a lion that's chasing us.
Mhm.
We shut off digestion, right? There's an 80% decrease in blood flow to the liver, the kidneys, and the digestive system when we're in fight or flight. So these organs go into a state of suspended animation and they get turned offline, but they get enough blood flow to survive. However, they don't get enough blood flow to function properly. This is one of the reasons they say don't go swimming after you've just eaten. You'll get a stomach cramp
Mhm.
because your body's competing for where to send blood to. It's trying to send it to your arms and legs so you can swim and survive, but it's got to take it from somewhere and it takes it from the abdomen. So you're not now digesting your food properly anymore. And that can cause a whole host of other issues. So we want to do something that we refer to as autonomic pairing. Autonomic pairing means having the awareness of what state your nervous system is in and what activity you're doing in this moment. So, for example, if I was if I was eating food, I'd want to be in a state of rest and digest and repair. If I was recovering, if somebody's recovering from a cold or a flu, you'd want them to be in a state of rest and repair, right? If somebody's trying to go to sleep at night, you'd want them to be in a state of rest.
Hmm.
So every goal that our clients come to me trying to resolve, and I'm sure to you as well, lives on the side of the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. When we're in a more parasympathetic state, we're more creative. We're sending more blood to our neocortex instead of to our limbic brain where we're reactive. So we can switch from reactivity to creativity by changing our state. Our saliva production increases when we're in a parasympathetic state, thus preserving oral health, but also allowing us to start the digestive process if we're going to eat a meal. Our heart rate is more stable and usually lower. Our respiratory rate is more calm and less frequent. Our blood flow is going to our detox organs like our liver and kidneys and going to our digestive organs so we can digest our food thoroughly. We are pooling blood into our trunk instead of in our arms and legs. So all the repair and regeneration is, where people get cancer is not in their arms and legs, right?
Hmm.
Where they get cancer is in the trunk.
Hmm.
And so we want to make sure that this system, this area, region of your body is getting adequate blood flow. And it gets adequate blood flow when we're in a more parasympathetic state. So our immune system works better. Our blood sugar is more regulated. Remember, if you're in fight or flight, your blood sugar is going to go up, right?
Right.
Because cortisol's main job is to increase blood sugar. So our blood sugar becomes regulated. Our immune system is regulated. Our creativity is where it needs to be. Our digestion works better. Our detox works better, but also reproductive function works better as well. So every goal that a client comes to me with is living on that side of the fence, but the person is living on the other side of the fence, right? And so
Right.
you will never get healthy living in a sympathetic dominant state. It doesn't matter what supplements you take. It doesn't matter what diet you eat. It doesn't matter how much you exercise, right? If you're in the wrong state, you will never heal the way you're supposed to. And so the key is getting into that more parasympathetic state, spending 80% of our time in that state instead of 80% of our time in a sympathetic state. And when that switch flips for people, their life completely changes. And breath is one of those access points to
Hmm.
shift our nervous system.
Hmm.
Another access point could be meditation or prayer. Gratitude is another way to shift us into a more parasympathetic state. Okay. Spending time in nature is probably one of the best ways for us to get into that parasympathetic state, right? Surrounding ourselves in a balanced environment is very important. So, getting out of a stressful environment in the office and getting into nature, that's going to make a huge shift in our nervous system. And then adaptogens like reishi can be a powerful adaptogen that shifts us into a more parasympathetic state. Ashwagandha can help us balance our stress response. So there's a few natural holistic tools that one can use as well. And then for some people, even vagal stimulation can be very beneficial. So using technology to help, support our vagus nerve through stimulating it. You can do auricular stimulations. There's also stimulations that you can put around your neck and stimulate your vagus nerve that way if it's appropriate. And I would always say, like, if you're going to use something like that, check with your clinician first just to make sure it's what you need.
This is where lifestylist or lifestyle medicine is so effective. Like, we haven't even really talked about nutrition or food or exercise. What we're talking about is so much more important and so much more accessible to everyone because you're just shifting your day to be like, okay, if my goal is to sleep better at night, then how can I set up my evening to where I'm going to be more sleepy when I go to bed. And it's as
Mm-hmm.
simple as dimming the lights and calming that nervous system down and not checking your email before you go to bed and not checking Facebook and seeing all the news and the negative influencers out there that are causing you to stress before bed. Like, these are simple things that require no effort on someone's part other than creating these lifestyle habits. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
finding the right sleep supplement as much as it is finding the right sleep strategy that just really helps you calm down. So I love that there's so many things we're talking about that are free that somebody can listen today and go, I don't have to sign up for a giant program. You mean I can just like go outside in nature? I can just get sunlight. I can just dim my devices at night and maybe read a book instead of my phone. These are simple things people can do.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I did a podcast where I talked about a new low carb diet that has nothing to do with food, and it's all about circadian rhythm. So it's about getting your light right because as you mentioned, blue light and all of the frequencies are very negative to our blood glucose. They actually elevate our insulin and our blood sugar at the wrong time of day, meaning at night. When we have 1 hour of blue light after the sun goes down, we actually can create a stress response which raises insulin and blood glucose. And so somebody can actually be on a low carb diet without changing their food by getting sunlight during the day and dimming those lights at night. So I know you talk a lot about circadian rhythm. I wanted to get your take on light as a part of circadian rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. So, circadian rhythm, for those that are new to the term, is basically how our body shifts and changes based on the rising and setting of the sun. And every animal on the planet, every insect and every plant regulates its biology based on where the sun is in the sky, except human beings, because we invented artificial lighting.
Right.
And I think one of the things that we'll discover, and I know there's people like Jack Cruz who've been talking about this, shouting it from the rooftops for many years, that light is like the last, maybe not the last, but the next frontier, at least in
Mm-hmm.
health. And I'm sure we'll discover something else after that. But light is the next frontier. And it's something that if you start paying close attention to, you start realizing that around the time that we started getting exposed to screens is when we started seeing a decline in people's health. So if you look at
Absolutely.
trends in healthcare, you'll start to notice that, yeah, right. So it was around the late 80s, early 80s, and then into 90s, and then into the 2000s, where people were spending a lot more time in front of a computer screen, right? And I feel like that's often overlooked as a culprit. We
Absolutely.
almost, there's a cognitive dissonance because we don't want that to be the problem, right?
Yeah.
And of course, it wouldn't be possible for us to do this if it weren't for technology. So I recognize that, but that doesn't change the facts. We also spend a lot more time indoors. And indoor lighting, in the name of efficiencies, has significantly changed in our lifetime because we used to use incandescent bulbs, and
Right.
incandescent bulbs have a different emission of wavelengths of light that are more akin to sunrises and sunsets, as opposed to LED lights, which is what we primarily use now these days,
Mm-hmm.
which are designed for efficiency. So they're actually missing certain wavelengths of light for the purposes of efficiency and reduction in heat production. So a LED bulb is generally going to overexpress blue light and not have any spectrums of light or any wavelengths of light in the red spectrum and infrared spectrum. The
Mm-hmm.
heat that you feel from a bulb or the heat that you feel from the sun is actually infrared light. And infrared light penetrates the skin and is very deeply healing to the body and mitochondria as well. So we need to kind of recognize how light plays such an important role. And we need to also recognize now we're spending most of our time in front of the wrong type of lighting. And
Mm-hmm.
whether that intent was malicious by the powers that be or not, it doesn't matter, right? We just have to be conscientious of, are we getting uh, the right amount of lighting at the right time of day? Because it does affect all of our hormones in our body, not just insulin, not just
Right.
cortisol, but it
Right.
affects every hormonal system in our body.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we encourage people to do to help with this process is pay attention to not just the type of lighting they're exposed to, but the direction of the lighting as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you were outdoors, then you'll notice that the sun starts at the horizon and kind of works its way up into the other side, and then sunsets in the horizon. Whereas the lighting in our homes is usually coming from overhead sources all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
So if we just kind of use that as the sun as our guide, then as the sun goes down, it's probably advisable for us to turn our lights down, especially overhead lighting. We can switch to lamps with shades. That could be a great place to start. And then for people who want to be more advanced, we can switch to red bulbs at night, and that's going to help us reduce our cortisol production and also help us increase melatonin production. If you want to be next level advanced, then you would turn off all the lights, right? You might
Right.
go to candlelight or just call it quits and go to bed. A little
Right.
hard to do when the sun's setting at 4:30, but that's what some people would do. We actually need, winter is a time for rest. So it's actually advisable for us to rest more during the winter and sleep more during the winter than maintain our traditional schedule. In fact, I end my work schedule an hour early in the winter just to align my work schedule with how long and short the days are as well. So we can make changes, right? We can adapt to our environment as we need to. So the app that I recommend that people get is called Circadian. And
Mm.
Circadian is an app that is free. There's a free version and there's a paid version. You can get the free version to start. And it basically tells you what times of day to expose yourself to outdoor lighting. It adjusts for where you are, the season, and all that stuff. But that could be a great place for people to start. Another thing that people can do is they can, it's a little bit harder to find, but you can still find them at specialty lighting stores, is use tungsten bulbs whenever possible. So tungsten bulbs are going to be more akin to natural wavelengths of light, especially the wavelengths of light that we're exposed in the evening and in the early morning. So that's going to be beneficial for us as well. You can get a red light panel. That's something that I use in the morning every day to start my day. And that could be a powerful way to get infrared and red light in the mornings, especially in the winter, because it's a little bit harder to expose ourselves outdoors. And for some people, uh, lighting can be very important, getting the right amount of sunlight, but cold exposure can also be very important. So
Yes.
depending on this getting maybe outside of my area of expertise, but depending on how the mitochondria are coupled, some people can recharge their mitochondria with cold,
Right.
and some people can recharge their mitochondria better with heat.
Hmm.
A lot of it has to do with our ancestry and where we're from. So chances are, if you're darker skinned like I am, then heat is going to be and sunlight is going to be very regenerative, and you're a bit more fair skinned than I am. So, for you, cold might be, what charges your mitochondria. But circadian rhythm is something that it's getting a lot more attention. I believe Sachin Panda wrote a book on it
Mm.
that I haven't read yet, but something that is on my to read list. And it's a great way for us to reset our sleep and wake cycle. It's a great way for us to enhance our hormone production. It's a great way for us to balance and stabilize our blood sugar as well. Like most people don't know this, but the you could stare at a computer screen and not eat anything, and it'll raise your blood sugar.
Yes, absolutely.
Exposing yourself to blue light while you're eating increases your blood sugar and insulin resistance. So you could eat the same meal outdoors or the same meal indoors in front of a bright screen, and it'll have a completely different effect on your biology.
Mm.
And so while that sounds depressing to some people, it should sound empowering to others, because that simple change can make such a huge difference in and result in taking less supplements, result in taking fewer medications or no medications anymore, and give us a huge ROI. If you're going to eat, right, do it right,
Hmm.
right? Do it so that all the odds are stacked in your favor. And now, like, if you don't watch TV while you're eating, it's okay, because you could just watch it later. It's not going anywhere, right? Like when we were younger, you look a lot younger than me, but when I was younger, if Seinfeld was on at a particular time, so you had to be there or be square,
Right.
right? But now you could just watch it whenever you want. So, it's not going anywhere. Enjoy your meal, right? Read a book if you want, right? Just don't expose yourself to bright, unnatural wavelengths of light.
Yeah, I'm not that much younger than you. I'm 44, so we're in the same time frame.
Okay. I'll keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, but it's so important what you're saying is because, like, again, these are free things we can do. And I have talked at length with my clients who are like, well, I can't, no matter what I try, I can't sleep. And I always ask the question, if you had zero light in your house, all of the house lights were off, there were no devices on, there's zero light coming in, and you were in pitch black darkness for like 2 hours, could you sleep? And they're like, well, yeah, there'd be nothing to do. Of course, I could probably go to sleep. And I was like, exactly. Like, that's all you need to know is that
Yeah.
we're creating these environments that are not conducive to sleep. So, just something as simple as creating an environment that is conducive, like you mentioned, red light. My whole house is red light when I go to bed at night.
Hmm.
So, the neighbors probably think we're crazy, but we all sleep well. So, it makes a
Yeah.
difference. And something is, putting on candles or making a fire at night in your home and just creating an ambiance of relaxation. And I think that is a big missing piece to everyone's protocol out there, because they're so stressed doing the next thing and go, 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 and have so many irons in the fire. And there's social media and there's work and there's family and there's all these things vying for our attention. But really, it's like you said, when we focus on the things that actually help us go into parasympathetic, all of your goals seem to line up after that. You start to get
Mhm.
results, you start to feel better, you start to sleep better, you start to see even weight loss results. So I think these free things are really going to knock some people's socks off when they hear this. As we wrap up, I want to go into a little bit more on the aspect of snoring and breath work.
Great question. So we actually have a whole guide on it. And there's a series of exercises that one can do to improve the patency of the airway. So there's a few different reasons why somebody might snore. The first place I go to is their diaphragm. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to pay attention to how they're breathing during the day. I might want to release some trigger points that they might have in their diaphragm. And for some people, we encourage them to strengthen their diaphragm using something called crocodile pose, where you simply lay on your stomach and breathe into your belly.
Yeah.
And doing that is going to help strengthen the diaphragm. The other reason that people might snore is because of their airway might get kinked.
Mm.
So when the airway gets kinked, that's usually caused by a weakness of the muscles of the airway, and also the way they're sleeping. So if you're sleeping with a pillow that's causing you to kink your neck forward, think of it like a garden hose. Going to cause a restriction in the airway. So side sleeping for those people can be beneficial, or getting a pillow that supports their neck in a neutral position. So instead of a thick pillow that pushes their head forward and puts their neck into flexion, a pillow that puts their head into a more neutral position or extension position. The
Mm-hmm.
pillow that I recommend for that is called neck nest. So people
Mm.
can look up neck nest. And Peter Martone is a doctor who invented it. He's a chiropractor, so very focused on the anatomical aspects of sleep as well. Another thing that people can do is swallowing exercises. So there's different mewing and swallowing exercises people can do, because that's going to help strengthen the muscles, and then tongue exercises. So for some people, the tongue is falling into the back of their throat,
Mm-hmm.
causing an obstruction for them, and that's going to cause obviously the snoring. The other thing that that's going to do is it's going to it's going to cause their body to be in a constant fight or flight state,
Right,
right?
right.
So if imagine somebody snoring while they were awake
Yeah.
during normal business hours.
Ugh,
Like, you would look at that person and be like, dude, like, what's wrong with you? But for
right.
some reason, when people do it while they're sleeping, because it doesn't bother them, they don't really realize how bad it might be. There is an app that you can get. It's called Snore Score,
Mm-hmm.
or Snore Lab. I'm sorry, and Snore Lab gives you a snore score, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can record yourself down, and you'll see, like, within days when you start doing the exercises I share, within days the snore score starts coming down, and it's quite remarkable how quick the changes can take place. For some people, losing fat, body fat, will be helpful. The other thing to keep in mind is that your tongue is marbled with fat. So when we lose fat systemically in the body, our tongue is going to become smaller as well, causing less restrictions. A few other reasons why the tongue might be enlarged could be food sensitivities. It could be a B12 deficiency or a iron deficiency. And then some people with thyroid conditions, their
Right.
tongue might become enlarged as well. So there could
Mm-hmm.
be other underlying deficiencies or metabolic dysfunctions causing the tongue to become enlarged.
Mm-hmm.
And another reason people snore is because of the structure of their jaw.
Mm.
So if they've had teeth pulled, or their lower jaw is underdeveloped, or they have what's called a retrognathic jaw, where their jaw is pushed back a little bit, then
Mm-hmm.
that's going to cause a more restricted airway, and that could cause dysfunctional breathing. So that's more of an airway and anatomical issue. So for those people, wearing a bite plate which pulls
Mm-hmm.
their jaw forward,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a snoring apparatus, that could be helpful for them to do. And then one thing I really like is mouth taping. So
Mm-hmm.
unless somebody has severe obstruction through nasal breathing, they can start mouth taping by just placing a piece of tape vertically over their mouth like this. So they don't have to seal the mouth per se, but they just have to keep the mouth jaw in a closed and relaxed position. That's going to cause them to breathe through their nose. And one particular oil that I recommend is called Nasya oil.
Mm.
Nasya oil is a Ayurvedic formulation. A few drops into each nostril will help lubricate the sinuses and cleanse the sinuses, therefore potentially making it easier for them to breathe as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's listening to this and they've been a habitual mouth breather because it's hard for them to breathe through their nose, just start breathing through your nose throughout the day. It's going to feel a little bit restricted naturally because it's a smaller opening. The nose pressurizes the air. So the purpose of the air going in through the nose is to slow down the air. So it's always
Mhm.
going to feel more restricted, even in a healthy, normal person. And so as you breathe through your nose, it'll start to open up. For some people, they can start mouth taping just 5 minutes a day while they're awake, then 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, try it with a nap so they can work through a progression of using the mouth tape because it might just, because I think a big thing is just kind of working through the layers, right? So the diaphragm, the swallowing exercises, the strengthening exercises, trigger point release, and then the tongue exercises that we mentioned. I mean, those are good places for people to start. That could help improve, even if it's just a little bit.
Mhm.
Anything helps. Stick to it.
No, that's such good information. Okay, so you mentioned slowing down the breath. And I've heard you talk before too about how our breath should be like smaller, softer, slower, even taking fewer breaths per minute. I'm wondering if you could take us through a practice, just a brief practice that people could start to do to kind of slow down their breath and regulate their nervous system a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple ways. So one is if you've experienced something stressful, let's say somebody cuts you off the road, or you're frustrated with your boss, or you're frustrated with yourself, whatever the case may be, or maybe your kids, right? And so you don't want to take that stress into your next appointment or into your office, or you don't want to bring it home with you. There's a really simple technique called a physiologic sigh. And
Mm,
there's some variations of it. So I'll explain how I do it with my clients. And it's really simple. It gets us from that fight or flight state into a more parasympathetic state. And it just takes about 2 to 5 minutes, depending on what your starting point is. And it's really simple. So what I have people do is just sit up nice and straight in a nice, comfortable position, placing their tongue at the roof of their mouth, and then taking a nice full inhale into the nose, letting it out. And then now fully exhaling, placing the tongue at the roof of the mouth, taking a nice breath in into the nose, breathing into the belly, into the lungs. And at the very top, taking a few extra sips of air, really filling the top of the lungs, holding at the top, squeezing the pelvic floor. And on the count of three, releasing with an audible sigh. 1, 2, 3, drop the tongue, release.
oh, that's
Okay.
nice.
Letting the air all the way out. And you would repeat that 3 to 5 times. Works better if your eyes are closed. Don't do it while you're driving, obviously. And you'll find that we already do this when we feel a sense of
We
relief,
do, yeah.
right? We're
Hmm.
just exaggerating that. So instead of, okay, I feel good, we're exaggerating that,
Hmm.
allowing or, signaling to our nervous system that we're safe. So one thing that's interesting that we didn't really talk about, I want to touch on here, is that when somebody's state of nervous system changes, you will see it first in their breath.
Mm.
Okay. So that's one thing to note is our body uses the breath to outwardly signal the state of our nervous system.
Hmm.
So just like they say the eyes are a window into the soul, the breath is a window into the nervous system. So
Hmm.
pay attention to how somebody's breathing. If I was sitting here and breathing, you'd know something was wrong with me,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And if I was breathing nice and calm and relaxed, I'm going to transfer that calm relaxation to you as well. So we can actually use our breath to calm other people down as well, or we can use our breath to stress other people out. There's a mirroring effect that takes place as well. So the breath is the window into the nervous system for people.
I love that. So many free things that anybody can do. Like just the act of that,
Mm-hmm.
manual sigh is something
Yeah.
that anybody can sit right here and do. And I understand that you even have free resources that you share with your listeners, your followers, our listeners here. Tell me about
Mm-hmm.
those.
Yeah. Before I do, may I close the loop? I realized I didn't finish my thought.
Yeah.
Um, so when you do the physiologic sigh,
Hmm.
you're sending a message to your nervous system. And it's literally a two-way street. So at an unconscious level, our nervous system is changing our breath without us even realizing it. It's happening automatically. However, we can also consciously send information into the nervous system through our breath. So it's like a bridge and an access point to our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
The other breathing technique I wanted to share is called coherence breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And coherence breathing is really simple, again, embarrassingly simple. However, it's just a matter of doing it and drawing our attention to it. And this is how I try to breathe throughout the day. This breathing technique is what you would use if you were trying to be creative, if you were trying to be focused and present, if you were checking your emails, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you wanted to, hold space for that conversation. This is how you would breathe. Coherence breathing connects our heart and our brain. So we know this from the Heart Math Institute, who has studied
Mm-hmm.
this for almost 30 years now. And anytime we can connect our heart and our brain, that's when the real us shows up, right? Our intellectual faculties and our emotional faculties and spiritual faculties show up when we're in that state of coherence. So coherence breathing is really simple. Again, our tongue is at the roof of our mouth, and we are going to breathe in for a count of 6 and out for a count of 6. Okay, so I'll just have everyone take a breath out, just let it out, and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you would just continue at that pace. And you could already I already feel calmer and more centered and relaxed. So that's a great way for people to breathe throughout the day. Now, with any habit change, there's an actual formula that's been studied at Stanford University by a friend of mine, BJ Fogg. He wrote a book called Tiny Habits.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people might be wondering, well, Jodelle and Sachin, you shared some great insights and information today. How do I adapt this? How do I create behavior change? So behavior change is really simple. There's a 3-part formula. The first part of behavior change is motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully all of you are motivated to change your health. You wouldn't be at this part of the interview if you weren't,
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't find this interesting and inspiring. So motivation, and we want that motivation to be intrinsic, not extrinsic. Extrinsic motivation is temporary and fleeting. Intrinsic motivation coming from within is something that you have unlimited reservoir of. So what about your health really motivates you? And it's not just about being healthy, but what would you do with that health? What would your health enable you to do, right? So be motivated to make change. The next is ability, right? Everything that we talked about today, even if you don't do everything, you could do half those things today, right? No matter what the weather is where you are, if you don't want to go outside, you don't have to go outside, but you can be aware of your lighting indoors,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe you can have a better nighttime routine or practice. Or you could change the way you breathe. You could do the coherence breathing like we're talking about. So there's so many opportunities for us to, access our nervous system and access our health. And, the 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out is that coherence breathing pattern. So ability, we all have that ability to do
Right.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the third thing is a prompt. So the prompt is really important. So that's the missing key for a lot of people. We're all motivated, we're all capable, and we have the ability, but the prompt is what we need and is often missing.
Yeah.
So prompt could be, for breathing, the prompt that I give my clients is, what is the thing you think about the most each day? And so for Jadelle, it could be, for you, it could be a client or clients. For some people, it might be their phone. For some people, it might be their spouse. For some people, it might be their newborn baby.
Right.
Whatever the case is, and there's no judgment in what the answer is, but, just think of what that is for somebody. And for anyone who's listening to this, what's the thing you think about the most?
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to anchor your breath to that. So I think of, let's say, my wife the most.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thought I'm going to have is, where's my breath?
Mm-hmm.
So I already have now 200 to 300 anchor points in my day to now pay attention to the way I breathe. I think the thing that people think about the most these days is their phone. So that's a good anchor point for a lot of people.
Oh, no.
And every time you pick up your phone, right, then just think of your breath next. And that will very easily incorporate breathing into your life to the point where it becomes something you anchor to everything that you do.
I love that. Yeah, I've heard it said before, attach one habit to an existing habit. But what you're saying makes so much sense because if your main habit is thinking this same thought over and over about this one particular person or thing or whatever you're doing, and then attaching your breath to that, how much mindful would your day be? How much
Hmm.
more parasympathetic would your day be? So this is like a gift you just gave everybody to think about that one thing
Hmm.
and then attach their breath to it. I love that. So you do have a lot of free resources, one of which there's like a bundle I think that you have that even talks about snoring. It talks about breath work. You have a 30 in 30 that people can get in their email. So many free things. I mean, you're all about free. So tell us where that is.
Yeah, thank you. So the first resource they can get is a whole breathwork bundle. It's absolutely free. And I share my favorite tools, resources, techniques, strategies. I just recently created a guide called Breathe Like This, Not That. So
Mm.
it teaches you how to breathe in different scenarios and situations. So there's a PDF that you can download and print if you want and have access to. They can go to breathworkwithsachin.com. So www.breathworkwithsachin.com and just enter their information and get access to it for free. And then I also have something I created. It's going to be celebrating its 10-year anniversary. And it's timeless wisdom I recorded in 2015. It's called 30 and 30.
Mm.
And I recorded this with the intent for it to live on forever, be relevant, not just 10 years ago, but just as relevant today. And of course, I've learned a lot of new things in that period of time. But this is the foundation. So it answers the question, if you were to come in and see me, what would be the first 30 things I'd tell you to do?
Oh, nice.
And if you were to do these things, chances are you won't need to come in and see me. So this has probably prevented more appointments than anything I can think of, because when people go through this series, they start getting really simple things that they can do throughout the day to improve their health, and it's all for free. So they can go to 30in30.org, 30 and
Mhm.
30.org, and get 30 free emails every single day with some great insights and little short videos or downloads or special links that they can go to.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go get that one because I have your other newsletter, but I don't have this one. So yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to do that. Okay, so my last question, I like to ask all my guests, in accordance with my favorite quote by Audrey Hepburn, which is, "I believe that every day should have at least one exquisite moment." Can you share with us today what your exquisite moment has been or maybe will be?
I love that. I'll give you both.
Okay.
So every morning I have a special concoction. It's really simple. It's a reishi infused coffee
Mm.
combined with something called cacao calm.
Yeah.
And so cacao calm is a ceremonial hot chocolate which has adaptogens in it. And then I have a reishi infused coffee. So that's my morning ritual. I do that every single day,
Nice.
and it's just brings me a lot of joy from a taste bud standpoint, but also really grounds me. And I love that drink. So that's my exquisite thing I did this morning.
Hmm.
And then today, the thing that I'm really looking forward to spending time with family and being present with them. One hack for everyone is it's upstairs, but I got this little device for my phone. It's called a brick. And a brick is, I don't know if this is helpful for you, Jodelle, or not, but it might be helpful for some of your users. I know my phone can be a huge source of distraction for me, especially because I have an online business
Hmm.
and I get lots of messages, lots of emails. And so the brick is a device that you can basically tap with your phone, and you can select what apps you want to keep on and off.
Hmm.
And so now when I go to spend time with family, I tap my phone to my brick, put it in family mode, and now I can't check my email, I can't check my text messages, I can't check my WhatsApp, I can't check Facebook or Instagram. So my phone turns into an actual phone
Oh, nice.
instead of like an entertainment or distraction tool. And so you can use different modes. I can put it in gym mode, I can put it in family mode, I can put it in work mode, and
Mhm.
then it basically uh, allows me to stay very focused and not get distracted. And so that's made my time with family even more exquisite because I can be fully present to them.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that'll be beneficial for a lot of people out there that are trying to, as a maybe a new
Mhm.
habit, try to find their focus with their phone. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. I hope to have you back on because I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about too. But I will have all the links in the show notes that you mentioned. And if people want to work with you directly, how do they do? Is there a specific website for that? Would that be the Living Proof Institute?
Yeah, they could go to thelivingproofinstitute.com or becomeproof.com.
Hmm.
It's a little bit shorter, it takes them to the same place. And they can learn more about the work that we do. We're always happy to be in service of people. But first things first, we want to teach you how to stay out of our practice. Do the free stuff. It
Yeah.
works, I promise. And then if there's something deeper going on, we're always happy to help people and support them on their journey.
Wonderful. Yes. So many free things that they can look into. And just, I feel like we probably gave them but 20 to 25 free things today. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right. Well, we'll talk again. And thank you again for coming on.
Thank you, Jadelle. It was a pleasure.
Wouldn't it be nice if dialing in your health concerns were easy? Yeah, with so many schools of thought out there and so many diets, so many biohacks, so many tips and tricks, and really diet confusion, it's hard to know what's right for you as the individual. And that's where I would love to help you with a bio-individual pro-metabolic consultation. Yeah, I like to keep it simple. I like to keep it easy. I like to keep it affordable with so much in the world that's not. And so with a simple consultation over Zoom, I record your consult, I send it to you when you're finished so you can go back over it anytime you want. And during that consultation, I ask a slew of questions like a nutrition detective to get to the bottom of your bio-individual needs. All of this for $199. That's right, I told you I like to keep things affordable. I don't think that health should cost a fortune. I think that you know your body better than anybody, and I'm there to listen to you and honor where you are and help you along the way. No two persons' needs are alike, so no wonder your friend loses a ton of weight on keto, but you don't. Your body is completely different, and together you and I will work on a plan that fits your goals, nutrient needs, your lifestyle, thereby creating an optimized lifestyle protocol that you can adhere to, not a diet. I don't do diets. I love to look at HTMA results, hormone testing, and I love to dabble in iridology, so you send me a scan of your iris and I can look at that and tell you what's going on in your gut. Again, the initial consultation is an affordable flat rate of $199. That's right, I like to be affordable and transparent in a world where nothing ever is. And I don't think it should cost a fortune to have a health coach walk you through and navigate your health. So if that interests you, let's set up a free 15-minute discovery call and let's decide if we're a good fit together. Or if you're ready right now, you can email me at getfitwithjodelle@gmail.com and we can get you right on schedule. So for either case, whether you want your discovery call or you want to get right on schedule, that's getfitwithjodelle@gmail.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. What would it feel like to have virtually every supplement known to man at your fingertips? And what if you only had to drink water to get it in? I firmly believe in something called frequency. It's what you feel when you touch a rock that's warmed by the sun. That warmth is frequency. It's how your text message gets to your friend's phone thousands of miles away. It travels on frequency. It's lightning. When the lightning hits the earth, it adds electrons to the earth, and that's how we ground. It's wind, it's brainwaves, it's microwaves. Everything has frequency. And now you can write frequencies into your water since water holds frequencies. So imagine if each supplement has its own frequency and you write that into water, you can literally have any supplement, any peptide, any bioidentical hormone in your water. Listen to a podcast I did with a guy named Anton Fedorenko, a leading expert on frequency, and then visit my link in the show notes to infopathy, or infoceuticals, which is a way to infuse your water with the frequency of any substance or supplement that you want. Like I said, even peptides, without ever spending a penny on them. Check out the show notes for a link to infopathy and a special discount code just for my listeners.